Well, folks, it's here. The Star Wars movie we never asked for, because Woody Harrelson's bills aren't going to pay themselves. Hi, welcome back, and thanks for tuning in. Hey, before we get started, I wanted to remind you to please subscribe if you like what you see. It really helps me out. I've got tons of new content on the way, and I love doing it. So I wanted to make a review of this film without the usual bells and whistles, just so I can get it out in a timely manner and get my voice in the arena as well. I'm sure it hasn't escaped your notice that there's a considerable boycott happening online, and a lot in the YouTube community of Star Wars and what's happening with the current franchise. I went and saw Solo about a week ago on a Friday. I did have 2 passes laying around the house and I used those. I want to assure you in every way possible that Disney is not getting a cent from me currently. Now, while I didn't pay for the movie, you know, I have to know what I'm talking about. So yes, I did go and see it so that I can bring that information and an informed opinion to you. It was actually better than I expected, and it's hard to say that. It certainly wasn't great. It had a lot of problems. It was obviously a competent film. You know, the cinematography is great, especially if you like walking. There's a lot of walking in this film, a lot of going places. Just so much walking. One of the things that immediately popped in my mind as soon as the film was over was how tonally off the entire film was. I mean, this movie just couldn't decide what it was. It was like a little bit of Oliver Twist, it was Mad Max, it was Fifth Element, it was How the West Was Won, it was Blade Runner. And that's the inevitable outcome of a film that had so many problems during its production. Didn't really think it looked much like a Star Wars if you didn't have stormtroopers and all those other regular things in it that keep reminding us, hey, remember Star Wars? Remember Star Wars? Hey, you're watching Star Wars. Did you notice this was Star Wars? If it didn't have that stuff in it, it would have just been another generic space film. There was another sand planet, but they added a beach. And there was another snow planet, but they added mountains and a train. Did you get that? So it's not Hoth, and it's not Crate. I did always hope Crate was made out of red velvet cake. As for the characters, I'll admit this, I really thought Alden Ehrenreich was going to just bomb in this movie. And that wasn't because I heard that they brought acting coaches on the set or anything like that, but at the same time, he had really big shoes to fill, and that's a lot of expectations on a role. So what did I think? I think he did great. I think he had a lot of charm and charisma. I don't think that he was given very good writing to work with. I felt that he made the character his own, and he wasn't doing like a caricature of Han Solo. My other thought was that Donald Glover was gonna come out of this movie completely unscathed. I thought he was gonna just rise to the top and people were gonna be like, oh, he's amazing. He was the centerpiece of this film, and that didn't happen for me. I thought it was really a caricature of Lando. Again, he didn't have much to work with. His part was not terrifically huge. And in some spots to me, it just kind of felt like he studied Billy D. Williams as Lando and then kind of imitated that and brought that to the screen. Emilia Clarke, I don't know what the appeal is. If you have some secret about her that I don't know about her acting that I'm missing, please write it down below because I don't get it. I like Tandy Newton. They got rid of her too soon in the film, so there's nothing to go on. She was great up until that point, and then kabloom. I thought Paul Bettany was good and convincing as Dryden. I felt effectively intimidated and frightened a couple of times, and I didn't understand why he had stretch marks all over his face, like his face was like pregnant at some point. Okay, Woody Harrelson. I like Woody Harrelson, but this is the movie that sealed the deal for me that he's really a personality actor. And he's been overused so much as a mentor character in so many sci-fi and kind of like dystopian films lately that it's really getting old. Yeah, I'm a mentor. I'm doing that thing over here. And yeah. Someone please tell me the difference between his Beckett character and Hamish from the Hunger Games, because I don't see it. That character, Rio, was one of the most forgettable characters in Star Wars canon. Is Jon Favreau behind on his car payments or something? Why was this character in this movie? Jon Favreau playing John Leguizamo playing a 4-armed chimpanzee type alien, and he had one of the longest drawn out deaths in the whole film. I had no time to get involved with this character. I had other things to shit on. They are just terrified to have an opening crawl in anything other than the main feature Star Wars films. They're terrified of it, but yet they still have no problem having us read at the top of this film to catch us up. 3 years later. What? We've got another film that gives us a time lapse. 3 years, folks, that we're just supposed to magically make up in our head of the adventures that Han had, the skills he acquired, the things he learned, how his character grew. Remember when everyone was ripping on Attack of the Clones for just kind of telling us that Ben and Anakin had adventures and had a relationship and formed a strong bond? Well, that just happened again. Don't you think Han being in the Imperial Army would be kind of a significant time period of his life to explore? I cannot believe that the subject of fuel has come up again in a Star Wars film. But it's not we're running out of fuel this time, it's we've got to get the fuel somewhere before it explodes on its own. Someone please tell me why there would be trains transporting goods anywhere in the Star Wars universe when it's been very clearly set that ships ship things. Kind of the reason they're called ships. You're telling me that someone built this ridiculous train track through this impossible terrain to get something from point A to point B when there are ships, spaceships, flying around everywhere with goods in them. I mean, even Leia flies in this universe now. Strap something to her, she'll get there faster than a train. Look, the only reason that they put that in was because they were trying to give a nod to like Western train heist movies or something. I was actually really glad that there was finally a Star Wars film without C-3PO in it. And then this happened. This fucking droid character, what the hell was this doing in this movie? I had already seen some of the articles about the SJW droid that was now appearing in Star Wars, and I saw, oh no, this can't be. Oh yeah, it can be. So ladies and gents, I present to you R2-Me2, the self-made droid who's championing for droid rights. Suddenly that's an issue now in the Star Wars universe. Hey, remember how droids would get hurt and damaged and even torn apart in the old movies? And everybody was just kind of like, they'll fix it. In case you forgot, let me remind you.
Oh no.
Come on, R2, can you hear me? Say something. You can repair him, can't you?
We'll get to work on him right away.
You must repair him. Sir, if any of my circuits or gears will help, I'll gladly donate.
He'll be all right.
Have they also established that a restraining bolt keeps droids from just automatically revolting, like the minute that you take that off, that they just go into this frenzy? How do droids know to rebel? Because L337 told them to? Again, I'm sorry folks, but for you droid sympathizers, it's pretty well established that droids serve a function in the Star Wars universe. Every time this annoying character came on screen, I just, hey, can I get you anything? Equality. What? Get the hell out of here with that shit. It was like Tumblr Droid. The scene between Kira and L337 where she's going on about how she thinks Lando is in love with her. What? Who wrote that? Is this you, Kasdan? Did you do this? What were you thinking? So when R2-Me2 dies, you're telling me that Lando Calrissian, who cheats at cards, is a bit of a scoundrel, throws some of his best friends under the bus down the line to save his butt, having this big emotional breakdown like it's the end of Titanic or something, like I'll never let go R2-Me2, cradling this dying robot in his arms like it's his dog that he just put to sleep that had cancer. You're telling me this is the same character? No, that's like yesterday's fish. I don't buy it. And again, we have another film that I feel is really heavy-handedly pushing the idea of oppressed cultures and resistance and rebellion. I get it. Part of that is part of the Star Wars universe, but you don't have to keep hitting us over the damn head with it. Did anybody notice at the spaceport that there were groups of stormtroopers arresting people and they kept going, shh, stop resisting, stop resisting? Really? Is that the only dialogue you could have given them? It doesn't have to mirror real-life police situations on Earth. Can we please remember that this is Star Wars? It has no obligation whatsoever to constantly reflect cultural and social and political things that are happening on Earth. Leave that to Star Trek. They can't stop. They can't just let these movies be uplifting, inspiring, escapism. That's what it is, it's escapism. No, it has to be just an ongoing cavalcade of virtue signaling and product placement for social, cultural, and political agendas. It's not gonna work. And something else I would really like to stop being pushed with these movies, and this shit started after The Force Awakens, is stop bringing people's sexuality into it constantly. Ooh, let's see who's gay. Ooh, let's see who's straight. Ooh, let's see who's pansexual. And speaking of that, that had nothing to do with this film whatsoever. You got the writers out there putting out these articles going, oh, Lando is pansexual. Let's make that very clear. At no point in the film was that determined or set in stone, and it wouldn't matter anyway. These stories are not about the character's sexuality. It has nothing to do with that. So don't pull this Dumbledore shit. You're sex baiting people. You are queer baiting people. The only intersectionality I think you better worry about at this point, Lucasfilm, is your writers intersecting with good storytelling. This guy's got a really terrific video on queer baiting in the sci-fi and fantasy community. I'm gonna put the link below. You should really check it out. It's good stuff. I gotta date myself and go back to the Stone Age for a minute, but when I went to the original movies as a kid, I didn't come home and go, Mom, Dad, I think C-3PO is gay. I mean, he probably is, but that's not the point. Don't use people's sexual identities in the real world just to try to get them to buy a ticket, because they're gonna call you out on it. They're gonna go to the movie and go, what the hell were they talking about? Just again, gotta get that sexual identity intrigue in there. They've just completely lost touch with what these movies are meant to be. It's a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. It's not yesterday trending on social media. This movie is just an exercise in just, you know, backstory masturbation. We didn't need this movie or asked for this movie in the first place, but now everything in it has to have its own story. Han can't just go buy a gun. No, someone has to give him a blaster. Han couldn't already exist with a birth name. No, he has to be given a last name by an Imperial officer. The gonna punch you fake out that we see when he greets Lando in Empire Strikes Back can't just exist on its own thing. No, we have to see the bookend of that in this film. So in 2 short hours, folks, we find out how he gets his gun, how he gets his name, how he meets Lando, how he meets Chewie, how they form a friendship, how he gets the Millennium Falcon, and how he works for the Empire. There's nowhere left to go. What more story is there to tell? You know, and for Disney claiming that the EU doesn't exist anymore and it's not part of Star Wars canon, they sure do keep pulling from that, okay? There's an existing story of Han joining the Empire. There's an existing story of Han and Chewie meeting while he's working for the Empire. Kylo and Rey are kind of ripped off of Jace and Jaina Solo. So Disney kind of needs to stop this bullshit with, oh, the expanded universe, we don't do that anymore. Yeah, you do. You put it in the movies all the time. And we have another example of an extremely rushed relationship. In the same way that like Rey and Han had this incredible bond in the course of like 3 or 4 days, you're telling me that Han and Chewie formed that incredible bond, that incredible life bond that we see all through the films in like 3 or 4 days? I'm totally confused about Chewie. Like, does he eat people? Or does he just mangle them? Is that why they threw Han down in the pit? And are you fucking kidding me with the Han I can suddenly speak Wookiee scene? So we see a lot of Chewie in this film, obviously. Does he just have 10 lines of dialogue that we just have to keep regurgitating and repeating over and over and over? I mean, it sounded to me like they just took every existing line he has ever uttered in a film and just repeated it all in this film. He makes no other sounds. If that's the case, then maybe Han did learn Wookiee in a very short amount of time. Because if he only talks 10 sentences, shit, I'll learn Wookiee. Is there some company that is going to make reproductions of Han's dice and sell them for a lot? I won't be surprised if there were. Stop trying to make the dice a thing. They're not that important. Stop trying to make the dice a thing. Darth Maul is in this movie. Darth Maul is in a cameo at the end of this movie. What? I was talking to one of my friends about this, and he said, oh yeah, Darth Maul has a brother, and he saved him and put him back together. I said, what? He said, yeah, it's in a comic book that was released. I said, bitch, I'm not reading all these comic books and supplemental pamphlets and prequels and trequels and extra books and everything just to understand what the hell is going on in this movie. I shouldn't have to. That is not my responsibility. He ignites his lightsaber for no reason whatsoever while he's talking to Kira. Is that like the Star Wars equivalent of like a dick pic? Like, hey, look at this. And I guarantee you, you're not going to see Darth Maul again, because the way this movie is underperforming, there are not going to be subsequent Han Solo movies. So overall, yeah, I think it was fine. I will admit that there were some surprises. Again, Alden Ehrenreich, I really liked his performance. Ron Howard, I wouldn't wish his job on anybody with this film, but it tanked. I had a feeling it would tank. In a strange kind of way, I would hope that it tanked so that Disney gets a little slap on the hand. But it's a bummer. Even with the reaction to the prequels, the franchise has never been in this position before. Fans have never boycotted anything before. Fans have never been this sad and angry. Even if this film was extraordinary, I think a lot of fans would have still walked in with a sense of hollowness and unrest because of things that can't be undone now. You know, The Last Jedi is just sitting there like a big turd. The people in charge of one of the biggest, if not the biggest franchises in the world has now put the onus on the fans and made it their fault instead of taking ownership of their creative mistakes. That just sucks. So I very strongly believe that we are definitely getting the shaft from Disney and Lucasfilm. And it's a very tough spot to be in as a fan because part of you, you know, you have that hope and you go, something could still happen. And the other part of you goes, I think we've seen the best of it. I honestly don't even know if Star Wars could ever be Star Wars again, but we'll see. I don't think that battle is fought yet, but I think it's very clear who won this battle. The fans. Disney doesn't take risks. They are their own competition. They don't take risks. They make products that are as ecumenical and as appealing to everybody for... That's the bottom line, folks. That's how it goes. And they have the fucking nerve to blame this on Star Wars fatigue. Yeah, you did that, Disney. But if you define fatigue as people who are getting tired of really bad storytelling, then you've hit the nail on the head. Yeah, we're fatigued, all right. Disney and Lucasfilm need a spa day where they can just go away, get a massage, maybe a happy ending, regroup, kind of like figure out where their head is right now. And maybe then things will start to make sense. They're getting some of the message, folks. What they're choosing to do about it, I have no idea, but they're getting it. So Disney and Lucasfilm, you've made it abundantly clear that your language is money. And the fans have now made it crystal clear that we're fluent in that language because we just spoke with our wallets.
Okay,